Welcome, all pregnant families, midwives or birth workers. This is Tracey Anderson-Askew, your host for the Transform Your Birth podcast, changing your mind about birth one story at a time. Each week, we will be exploring a birth story through the lens of what birth can teach us. I'll be digging deep into each story so you can learn what it is that can change the way a birth unfolds. We can't control birth, but we can influence it. So listen in to find out how. Enjoy. During this episode, I will talk about another form of preparation, and that is doing the inner work. Our birthing traditions focus on foods you can eat and the growth of the baby, but rarely do we talk about the growth of the mother. Mother Nature wants you to upgrade into the mother, and so this is a ripe time for growth and transformation. So listen in to find out more.
Before we begin, a note from our sponsor. This episode has been brought to you by Transform Parenting, an organisation that provides courses, coaching and community from pregnancy through to the first 7 years of a child's life. Most of the stories you will hear through this podcast are graduates of the Transform Your Birth workshop held in Canberra. Our Transform Your Birth Today course is now available to anyone, anywhere, at any time, and includes all the wonderful wisdom of this course and live weekly catch-ups when you need it with our host, Tracey. For a little taste, please accept our pregnancy gift offer, which contains free the first few lessons and some essential wisdom for pregnancy. The link can be found in these show notes or visit transformyourbirth.com.au. And now for the episode.
Hello everyone, it's Tracey with you again this week, and today I thought I'd bring to you another topic that we haven't covered, which has often been implied in many of the episodes that we've done, but not always clearly, and that's doing the inner work to prepare for birth. We often focus on the physical, what we eat, our exercise, movement, that sort of thing. But what does it even mean to do the inner work? And I'm going to suggest to you it's a very, very important part of the preparation process. If you can imagine a seed, and inside that seed is a blueprint of potential, maybe it's the seed of a tree. And given the right conditions, that seed grows. And we're kind of the same thing. We're wired to grow and to change throughout a lifetime. And when you have a baby, you're being really primed for transformation and growth. Now, it doesn't always feel like that, but essentially that's what Mother Nature requires of us. If you haven't listened to last week's episode about how the brain changes, that's a great one to listen to as well, because it shows how physiologically this is being primed. So go back and have a listen, because you'll marvel at what Mother Nature wants from us. So let's just look at what that looks like, because Mother Nature wants us to unlock our potential in this space. What does she want? She wants us to become fierce enough to protect this baby. She wants us to find our voice and use our voice as an advocate for this baby. In labour, women often make very primal, guttural and scary sounds. And I believe she's finding her inner roar to be able to roar at anybody who threatens her child. I've heard so many women say, especially quite timid women say, I'm not very good at expressing my own needs, but geez, I can with my baby. It just happens. Okay, that mother tiger gets born. Mother Nature wants us to fall in love. In birth, we access those really high levels of oxytocin. We're being primed to fall in love. And I believe that has a flow-on effect to other people as well. She wants us to build our stamina and resilience in order to keep stepping up and meeting the needs of a newborn. She changes our sleep. Have you noticed that the quality of your sleep is very different? We often wake up. Yes, we wake up to pee, but we're being primed to be able to wake up because we don't sleep as soundly in pregnancy, and that's helping us to be able to attune and hear when our baby needs us. So these are the things that are starting to change. Not only that, our hearing and our sense of smell becomes more sensitive. We have to keep stepping up. She also wants to humble us, to bring us to our knees, to bring to the surface old patterns of behavior that will not serve us as a mother. So we can often feel like we're in kindergarten again when we become new parents because we don't know what we're doing. And of course, the birth process humbles us as well because we can't control it. We can influence it, but we can't control it. So in many ways, she's trying to strip back some of those old patterns in order for us to ultimately upgrade the whole system. Because the mother is a bigger version of the woman in so many ways, on so many levels. Now, when it comes to going through the process of welcoming a baby, we all bring to the labour room and to a new baby a backpack of all of our beliefs, perceptions, stories, experiences, traumas, stuff, all the stuff that we've had to deal with throughout our lifetime. And it's the things in this backpack that potentially need to be sorted through, reorganized, getting rid of some, perhaps bringing in new beliefs, more mature beliefs, more ways of being that are going to support us in this new period of our lives. When I look at my backpack coming into becoming a mother, I grew up in the country and I grew up around people who never complained. They just got on with it. So that caused me to have a bit of a belief system that I had to do it on my own. You just get on with it. Don't complain. Don't ask for help. You've just got to get through it, which turned me into a bit of an ox. And then after my third son, I went a bit on autopilot and I had a bit of a crash and I experienced postnatal depression. It was in that period of time that I got to throw a few things out of my backpack and put some new ways of being in there. So there's a part of us that kind of knows what it is we need to let go of or overcome in order to grow, in order to be the best version of a mother that we can be. And of course, that's not a one and done. That's a job that lasts a lifetime. Your children are going to press your buttons. They're going to help light the way for you to discover your darker side, the anger, resentment, the rage that can be stored inside of our system, only to come flying out when we least want it to and in a way that we'd prefer not. But once again, that's inviting us to grow. Okay, it's a really important period of time. And so this is the inner work. Now, when I look back at particularly my first birth, it was such a transformational time in ways I could never have imagined. In fact, it's my first birth, which is why I'm sitting here talking to you and you're listening right at this point. It changed everything in my life, including my career. And it really all began with a meeting in a doctor's room in a very plush office in the north side of Sydney. And I loved my doctor until about 36 weeks pregnant. And at 36 weeks pregnant, and then I think I went back again at 38 weeks, my doctor said, look, your baby's in the breech position. We're going to need a cesarean. My first thought was, cool, no pain. Okay. I didn't have any ideals about how I wanted to birth this baby. All I wanted to know, being a typical country person, is what do I need to do to get the job done? It was what he said after that that became a deal breaker for me. He started to talk about the statistics of babies dying and he was projecting this fear at me. Now, fear is not a motivator for me. In fact, when people do that, I tend to get very suspicious. So it was in that space that I had this tangible physiological reaction to this person, realizing I do not want this person within 10 feet of me. Now, that moment of realization set me on a path I never could have imagined. I went to my childbirth educator that night, told her what had happened, said to her, I really don't feel comfortable with this doctor. She gave me the name of another doctor and also the name of an independent midwife. And so the next day I rocked up to a second doctor. He had a look at my pregnancy. He said, well, let's have a look at the position of your baby. I said, he's in the breech position. This other doctor said, oh, he might be, there's different types of breech, so let's have a look. And he said, oh, he's in the Frank breech position. Let's see if we can't turn him. And a couple of hours later, they tried to manually turn Sam. Now, Sam didn't turn because he was a very big baby and he was very well engaged in my pelvis. But this doctor saw this situation very, very differently and said, look, you're going to need to be upright and active. We'll give vaginal birth a go. This was back when doctors felt comfortable doing vaginal births. And he said, well, give it a go because that's going to be better for your recovery. And if we need to, we'll have a cesarean. Now, he was had a completely different approach. He was just really telling me what I needed to do to get the job done. So that felt safe for me. So that was my inner system, having the compass to know where I felt safe in birth and where I didn't. And that's the part of you that's starting to grow and become more active because the stakes are really high now. It's not just about you, it's about you and that baby. I also went later that day and met with an independent midwife, fell in love with her, and she ended up being a perfect person for me. And she really did introduce me to this inner work around preparing me, not just physically, but emotionally as well. One of the things that in those last couple of weeks that was happening, and she was doing my monitoring and checking blood pressure and things like that, was she checked my blood pressure and it was high. And then she said, look, I'm going to leave this machine with you. I want you to check it regularly throughout the day. And throughout the day, it wasn't high, but it was only when she came to measure it. And I said to her, I think it's you. You're the one who's sending up my blood pressure. There's this term called white coat syndrome where people's blood pressure goes up when they're in front of medical professionals. And I think I had a little bit of that. But she was on to me. She knew there was something else going on. And then she asked me the magic question, Tracey, what are you afraid of? And in that moment, I started to offload these, I guess, the fears that had started to creep in as a result of having a medical system that was different, conflicted. And I talked to her about my fear of being in the hospital and having things done to me and people with masks and all sorts of things. And she said, well, let's draw this. And we got a piece of paper and I got out some pencils and we drew it. And then she said, okay, now this isn't going to support you to birth your baby, is it? Now what I want you to do is tell me what it is you want. And so I drew this picture of a sort of hourglass woman with a golden river floating through her. And I just wanted my baby to very gently float on that golden river with people that I loved all around me. And she said, that's what you focus on. Now, interestingly enough, during my labor, I got to a point where I was getting a bit tetchy and a bit angsty, and I really wanted this baby out. She changed my position and she got my birth picture, put it in front of me, and that's what I focused on when I was giving birth. She harnessed my mind. She got me to acknowledge my fears, to let go of my fears. Oh, that was the other thing she did. She got me to burn the first paper in the sink. She said, come on, we're going to let go of this now. We're going to focus more on what you want, not what you don't want. And when I was pushing that baby out, she was the one who put that picture in front of me. And that's what I was looking at when I was pushing. And I remember it really giving me something to anchor myself to, focusing on what I wanted, not what I didn't want. So what I'd like you to do, whether you're able to do it now or if you're driving and listening to this, perhaps do it later. I want you to get a piece of paper. And on the piece of paper, I want you to have 3 columns: pregnancy, labor and birth, and parenting. And in each of those columns, I want you to write, what are you afraid of? Allow some thoughts to come to you. What are you afraid of in pregnancy? What are you afraid of in birth, during labor? What are you afraid of in parenting? How have people in your life spoken to you about birth? What are the stories that stick in your mind? How you think about birth will influence the way your body responds to it. If you're full of fears, your body will become more tense. Your blood flow will get rediverted into your arms and legs away from the baby and away from the uterus. And you won't be able to elicit those feel-good hormones. You're going to get more of those stress hormones. So that's the stress response. We don't want that in labor. We want the deep relaxation response. And so fears can get in the way of our birth. When you're scared, that's going to change your labor. I had a beautiful woman in one of my new mothers groups, and she's a doctor now, but back then she was a nurse in the neonatal intensive care unit. And I work a lot with medical professionals, and we have to really work with their mind because they've seen everything, and the subconscious hooks onto fears. And working in neonatal intensive care with newborn babies, she'd seen everything. And here she was now having a baby. And it was really interesting how she talked about, I only met her in my mother's group. She didn't do my birth course, but how she was talking about her birth. And she said, the labor went really beautifully. Everything went really well. But in second stage, I couldn't let go. I couldn't let go until the doctor walked in the door. And then when the doctor walked in the door, my body then released the baby. So there was a part of her hanging on until the person that was there, she wanted to be there to make her feel safe. Okay, so we can be hanging on to beliefs and thoughts as a result of our experiences that can stop us from releasing these babies. But fear is a great teacher. It's a great teacher, and it helps us to explore our inner programs. Now, there are 3 types of fears. Some fears you have because you don't understand something. And when you get that knowledge, you think, oh, okay, I understand that now. I can let that go. There are some fears you'll never let go of. And the most obvious one there, and I'm always a believer in calling the pink elephant in the room, is fear of loss. We can't let go of that one because nobody can guarantee anything in this life. And fear of loss comes when, when we love. We all live with it every day because we don't know how long our parents are here, we're here. But you can't live with that fear front and center, because if you do, it's like glasses. It's like wearing dark glasses. Everything is darker. And we can't enjoy every kick, every moment with these little ones in our bellies. And so what we've got to do with that fear is pop it in our pocket. But there's something good about these fears. They're very, very motivating. These are the fears that motivate us to take the actions we need to take to protect ourselves and the people that we love. Okay, but you don't want it front and center. Pop it in your pocket. You're going to have to walk around with those fears. And rather than cooking your baby with fear, let's cook our baby or marinate our baby in love, not fear. And then there are the fears in the middle, and these are the ones that you can't quite let go of because you might have to live with, but maybe you can reframe them in a way that should they come to pass, that you will be okay. That could mean perhaps having a game plan if you need to have a cesarean. If you're fearful of cesareans and you need to have one, then having an idea of how you would approach that. Maybe it's about having a discussion with someone close to you about what's playing on your mind about something. Maybe it's parenting and the lack of support you might have. Maybe it's your concern about sleep because you suffer insomnia now. What are the things you can do now that can help train your mind to work with the ability to go back to sleep? So that's why your fears are great teachers, because they motivate us to make the changes we need to make to overcome, to move forward, to grow, to get bigger and better. And this is what your babies and your children are going to demand from you. Okay. Now, there are other ways that we can manage our fears where we invite, health professionals and people who specialize in this type of work, whether it be a psychologist doing cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR therapy. I myself practice a form of therapy called Rapid Transformational Therapy. It's a sort of blended hypnotherapy type version designed to get into the back end of the computer and start to fiddle with those programs, upgrade the programs, And it comes with a recording that you use to really train your mind to respond a certain way. So there's lots of great things out there that you can look at. Recently, I did an RTT session with one of my long-term mothers. She's absolutely delightful. And she had a fear of medical professionals based in real life. And we did an RTT session on that. And we helped her to reframe some of her previous experiences and to have strategies and anchors moving forward. Now, I'd love to say that as a result of her doing the work, her next birth was not at all complicated, and she breezed through it feeling empowered and confident with her health professionals around her. But actually, that's not what happened. She ended up having a very difficult birth with people who were not as professionally skilled as what they could have been. And it was a very difficult time for her. She was so incredibly grateful that she had done this work previous, because even though she ended up going through a difficult time, she was able to manage it a whole lot better. And that's part of the deal with life, isn't it? There are no guarantees. We don't know what's ahead. And so learning certain tools and ways of being can really support us to make the inner changes that we need, to bring us into the best possible conditions to be able to birth that baby calmly, gently, lovingly under all circumstances. That's the work I've been doing for over 20 years. And I deeply believe that doing that inner work is what is demanded of us through this period of time by Mother Nature, by our children, by our inner selves. So there's always work to be done. I'm in my mid-50s now, and I'm still working on myself. But I would never change those lessons that I've learned through becoming a mother and pregnancy and birth. It's absolutely such a special, transformative, amazing time. So do the inner work, darlings, if you can. Reach out to the Transform Parenting or my website, Tracey@andersonaskew.com, if you want more information about doing some inner work. And in the meantime, just keep following the breadcrumbs. Where is this journey taking you? What's on your path? What do you need to work on? What is presenting itself to you to be worked with, to be worked on, to be overcome? So have a great week, and we'll have more goodness for you next week. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and share this podcast. This episode has been brought to you by Transform Parenting, an organisation that provides courses, coaching and community from pregnancy through to the first 7 years of a child's life. It is a place where you can learn, get support and grow into your role as a parent. Why not take advantage of a special gift for all pregnant women at transformyourbirth.com.au? Or if you have children, we have a gift for parents also.